I was born on Staten Island in New York and had a very ordinary childhood for that time, nothing exceptional. It was the New York City school system, so they did have a special program for what they considered the people who were exceptionally intelligent. And that changed my life when someone came to our class in 6th grade, and I was included somehow. I never thought of myself in any way exceptional, and that altered my life. Now I'm one of the intelligent people, whatever that means. So that was a special junior high. We did 3 years and 2, so I was pushed ahead. I was younger in my education. But like an ordinary American kid, I didn't take high school or junior high all that seriously. I can't say I did exceptionally well. I don't know where the proof of this intelligence was. But when I went to university, my parents were then living in Pennsylvania, so I went to Penn State University. I had 2 other brothers in university, so it's expensive, so going to a state school makes sense. It turns out Penn State is a very fine university, but it turns out also, purely by accident, chance, contingency, as I see the world, that Penn State had one of the finest departments of philosophy focused on the history of philosophy. Because as you know, American philosophy has gradually been really taken over by Anglo-American analytic philosophy. So there are fewer and fewer departments that do continental philosophy or the history of philosophy, but Penn State did, and they were exceptional. At one time, for instance, 2 professors were teaching Hegel. Most universities, you won't find anyone teaching Hegel, and both of them were writing books. So it turned out that the translator of Levinas, Alfonso Lingus, was teaching there. So although I never took a class with him on Levinas, I inevitably realized there was this philosopher, Levinas. But let me go back a step, because in my recent book I mentioned the 3 things that got me into the situation I'm in now. The first philosophy book I read was Bergson's Time and Free Will. And it blew my mind, because here was someone reasoning out a position I had never thought of, and yet I was convinced by his arguments. So that kind of rationality, I took, that's philosophy. You can reason, you can show arguments, and you can change your entire view of the world. And that happened with me with Bergson. I'm not a Bergsonian, but I'm still very much taken by Bergson's conception of time. And as I said first, the Department of Philosophy, doing the history of philosophy, that absorbed my attention. I never thought of going to college. I guess I was a privileged bourgeois kid in terms of vocation, job training. I really thought of it as education. And I wanted to put into reality that promise of my 6th grade that I'm one of the intelligent people. So I said, I'm going to take this seriously. I'm going to take university seriously. So I did. And I did well in university, and I took the most interesting courses. That was my plan. I didn't have a vocational plan. It was the most interesting courses, and they turned out to be philosophy courses. I ended up majoring in political science and philosophy. So the third component was Alfonso Lingus, not even so much as translator of Levinas, but as a true philosopher, someone who lived the life of a philosopher. It turns out subsequently that he and I don't share so many beliefs, so many propositional statements. In fact, probably we don't share a worldview. But he taught me the dedication of a philosophical life, not just a job at a university or a title in a department, but someone who was in that long tradition, starting with the Greeks, of living philosophically. The philosophy that started when Socrates died for the philosophical life. And Lingus exemplified that. Again, whatever else about his ideas, he exemplified that. So that got me into philosophy. And when I opened up Levinas, when I read Levinas, I said to myself, this is true. I had read Nietzsche, I had read Plato, I had read Hegel, Schopenhauer. These people are amusing, they're intelligent, they're insightful, Bergson. But when I opened up Levinas, I said, this is what I'm looking for. This is a true teacher for me. And it has been that way ever since. It has never changed.